My mother-in-law walked into my house while I was at work, took my wedding dress off the shelf, and handed it to her daughter to wear at her own wedding. My husband watched her do it and said nothing. Let me back up. Her name is Renata. She's 63. The first time I met her, she looked me up and down and spent the next 20 minutes telling me about her friend's daughter, who'd just made partner at a law firm. That was 4 years ago. She hasn't changed. I'm Claire. I'm 31. I work as a creative director at a mid-size agency downtown. I married Marcus 3 years ago. Marcus is 33. He's a structural engineer. He's kind, he's funny, and he is genuinely unable to say a hard word to his mother. We were working on that. Or we were trying to. But before I get to the dress, you need to understand what kind of person Renata is. Because if I just tell you she took the dress, it sounds like one bad moment. It wasn't one bad moment. It was the end of a very long pattern. Marcus and I got engaged in April, 2 years before the wedding. By June of that same year, Renata had already sent me a list. An actual typed list. Bullet points. 12 items. Her parish priest to officiate. Sit-down dinner, no buffets. No barn venues, because they were, quote, low effort. Her college roommate's catering company. And her guest list, which included 47 people I had never met, and Marcus only vaguely remembered. I didn't send back a hard no. That was my first mistake. I said we'd think about it. Renata interpreted that as yes to all 12 items. Marcus told me she was just enthusiastic. I told him a 12-item bullet point list wasn't enthusiasm, it was a takeover bid. But I let it go, because I loved him, and I thought I could handle Renata one situation at a time. I could not. 8 months before the wedding, I found my dress at a boutique called Aldridge Bridal. Ivory, off-shoulder, clean, simple lines. Not trendy, just timeless. It cost $2,800. I paid for it myself, from my own account. I took my best friend Sasha, and we spent a whole Saturday doing the full thing. Champagne, the mirror, the consultant. I cried a little. I bought it. It was mine. That evening, Marcus called his parents to catch them up like he always did, and I mentioned the dress. I described it. Renata said, ivory. On your skin tone, you'd want to be careful with ivory. Marcus said nothing. I said I'd bought it that afternoon, and it looked great. She said, I'm sure it did, sweetheart. I'm just saying. That was October. In January, she called Marcus and said she'd heard of a designer through her church group and wanted to take me dress shopping. Just the two of us. Mother-daughter bonding. Marcus came to me with actual hope on his face, like he was presenting a peace offering. I reminded him I'd already bought a dress. He said he knew, but maybe it would mean something to her to be included. I said no. Clearly and directly, no. I was not going shopping for a second dress to make his mother feel involved in a decision I'd already made. He accepted that, called Renata, and reported back that she'd told him I was being exclusionary. I found out about that word from Petra, Marcus's younger sister, 28, who was a bridesmaid at our wedding, and who is the only person in that family I trust completely. Petra called me not to take her mother's side, but to warn me. She said, my mom cried to Dad about the dress thing. I just want you to know it's gonna come up. The wedding was in May. It was beautiful. We didn't use Renata's priest, didn't use her roommate's catering company, didn't do a sit-down dinner. We did a cocktail reception because that's what Marcus and I both wanted. Renata sat at the front table, smiled for photos, and gave a toast that was technically complimentary, but included a 2-minute story about a girl named Brianna that Marcus almost married in his 20s, and how everything works out the way it's supposed to. After the wedding, I had the dress cleaned and preserved. Full preservation box, sealed, cost about $350. It went on the top shelf of the closet in our spare room. I told Marcus clearly that I wanted to keep it, either to pass down someday or just to have. He said that was completely reasonable. We agreed. I thought that was settled. The 2 years after the wedding were more of the same. Renata started asking Marcus about grandchildren 6 months in, not to my face, through him. He'd get off the phone and drift into whatever room I was in and say something like his mom was wondering if we'd thought about timing. I told him my reproductive plans were not his mother's business, and he needed to say that directly to her. He said he would. She kept asking. This went on for a year and a half. Then she decided she wanted to come stay with us for 10 days in September. Not a question, a statement. She told Marcus she was coming to help us get settled, even though we'd been in the house for 14 months. She showed up with 2 suitcases and a set of curtains she'd bought for our living room because she didn't like the ones we had. She hung them while I was at work on day 2. I came home to different curtains in my own living room. I took them down that night. She found them folded on the side table the next morning and didn't speak directly to me for 2 days. She spoke at Marcus, in front of me, about how some people don't appreciate gestures. Marcus told her the curtains weren't what we'd chosen and she needed to respect that. He said it quietly, like he was apologizing, but he said it. That was progress. Actual progress. The 10-day visit ended after 8 days, because I told Marcus I needed her gone before I said something I couldn't take back. She left early and told his father I had health issues that made hosting difficult. His father Raymond called to say he hoped I was feeling better. I was not sick. I was furious. But I let it go. That's on me. I let too many things go for too long. Now it's February of this year. Renata's younger daughter, Donnie, 25, sweet kid, a little starry-eyed about her mother, got engaged to her boyfriend of 2 years. We all went to dinner. Toasts, champagne, a lot of excitement. Renata announced the wedding would be next spring, 14 months to plan. Here's the part one didn't know. Sometime between that dinner and the last Tuesday in February, Renata decided that Danny should wear my dress. Not a dress like mine, my dress. The one in the sealed box on the shelf in the spare room. I was at work on that Tuesday. Marcus texted me at 2:40 to say his mom had stopped by and they'd had a nice visit. Normal enough. She stops by every couple of weeks. I got home at 6:30, made dinner, we ate. After dinner, I went to the spare room to grab something from the closet and I stopped. The box was gone. I stood there for a full 30 seconds looking at the empty space. I went and found Marcus in the living room and said, "Where is the dress box?" The look on his face told me everything before he spoke. He said his mom had taken it for Danny to try on. Not a big deal. She'd probably bring it back in a few days. He said it like he was solving a math problem and just needed me to calm down so he could present the answer. I said, "Marcus, she took my wedding dress out of our house without asking me." He said, "She thought you wouldn't mind, since it was just sitting there." I went cold. I asked him if he'd known this was happening while she was there. He got very quiet. Then he said she'd mentioned wanting Danny to try it on, and he hadn't thought it was his place to say no. So he watched his mother take my dress. He let her take it. He didn't call me. He texted me at 2:40 only to say she'd had a nice visit. I called Renata right then. She picked up on the 3rd ring, and before I could say a word, she said, "Claire, I was going to call you tonight. Donnie absolutely loves it. It's going to need a few alterations, but..." I said, "Renata, you took my dress without my permission and you need to return it tomorrow." She said I was being dramatic. She said it was a family dress now. She said it would mean so much to Donnie and to her. Both her children married in the same gown. What a beautiful story. I said, "That dress is not yours to give. Return it tomorrow." She said she'd talk to Marcus about it. I hung up. I went back to Marcus and told him what she'd said. He looked like he wanted to disappear through the floor. Then he said, "Can we talk about this tomorrow? I'm really tired. I want to be honest." That hurt more than the dress. I slept in the spare room that night. On the shelf above me, the box was still gone. The next morning, I called Petra before 8. She picked up right away and said, "I heard. I'm so sorry. What do you need?" She told me Renata had gone into the family group chat the night before. Marcus, Raymond, Petra, Danny, Danny's fiancé Greg, 2 aunts, and framed the whole thing as me being ungrateful and possessive about an old dress. She'd written a paragraph about trying to create a beautiful family tradition and being heartbroken that it wasn't appreciated. Petra had responded in the chat that the dress wasn't Renata's to give. Renata told her to stay out of it. Danny had written that she didn't want to cause problems, but that her mom had said I'd be happy about it. Raymond wrote that everyone should take a breath and approach things calmly. That was the ally contribution from Marcus's father. Marcus was in the chat. He had not written a single word. Petra sent me the screenshots. I went to the kitchen, put my phone in front of Marcus, and let him read the whole thing. He put down his cereal. I said, "Your mother is in a group chat telling your entire family I'm ungrateful. You're in that chat. You've said nothing. You let her take the dress. Last night you asked me to talk about it tomorrow." He said, I'll call her. I said, I don't want you to call her. I want you to get in the car with me and go get my dress. He said, okay. We pulled up to Renata and Raymond's house at 9:15 in the morning. Renata opened the door looking completely unsurprised, which told me she'd been expecting this. Raymond was behind her in the hallway with his hands in his pockets, doing his calm everyone down posture. Renata said, come in, we should talk about this properly. I said, I'm here for the dress, Renata. She started talking about how it was already at a seamstress for measurements. I said it slowly and clearly. You took my dress from my home without asking. It doesn't matter where it is now. It goes back in its box and comes home with me today. Renata looked at Marcus and said, is this really how you want to handle this? And Marcus, and I genuinely mean this when I say credit where it's due, said, Mom, you should have asked Claire. You knew that. I should have stopped you. We both made a mistake. Please give the dress back. Renata went completely still. Then she said, I was trying to do something meaningful for this family. Marcus said, I know, but it wasn't yours to give. Raymond put his hand on her shoulder and told her to get the dress. It took 15 minutes because she had to call the seamstress and have it brought over. But she got it. She handed the box to Marcus, not to me. I noted that. I let it go for the moment. On the drive home, Marcus apologized. He said he should have called me the second his mother mentioned taking the dress. He said he'd panicked and taken the path of least resistance his whole life with her, and he knew it was wrong, and he needed to stop. That was the most honest thing he'd said to me in a while. I told him I didn't just need that apology once, I needed it to stick. He said he understood. We brought the dress home. I put it back on the shelf. But here's what I know about Renata. She doesn't accept outcomes that aren't in her favor. She processes them and starts over. 3 days later, she called me directly, not Marcus, me, and asked if we could have coffee to clear the air. I agreed. I don't know why. I think I was hoping she'd actually apologize. We met at a coffee place near her house on a Saturday morning. She ordered a latte. She asked how work was going. Then she said, I think we both said things we didn't mean. I had not said anything I didn't mean. I told her that. She said she just wanted Danny's wedding to be special. She said the dress sitting in a box wasn't serving anyone. Then she said, and this is the exact line, it's not like you can wear it again. I set down my cup. I said, Renata, you are not getting that dress. Not for Donnie, not for anyone. If that's why you wanted this coffee, you wasted both our mornings. She sat back and said, I've tried to embrace you as a daughter-in-law from the beginning. I said, no, you haven't. You've tried to absorb my life into your family's preferences from the beginning. Those are different things. She didn't respond to that. I left. I told Marcus what happened when I got home. He called her. I could hear it from the kitchen. He was in the living room with the door open, and I heard him say something he had never said to her before. He said, Mom, stop. Final answer. Drop it, or we're going to have a much bigger problem. She must have pushed, because then he said, I'm going to hang up now, and he did. That should have been the end of it. Instead, the group chat lit up again. Renata sent a long message. I have the screenshots, because Petra sent them. Renata said she was grieving the relationship she thought she had with her son. She said she'd always tried to do what was best for the family, and it hurt to be treated like a villain when she was just a mother trying to love her children. She said she hoped everyone would reflect on how we treat the people who love us most. She didn't name me directly. She didn't have to. Danny wrote that she didn't want the dress anymore if it was causing problems, and she was sorry for upsetting me. That was decent. I appreciated it. Raymond wrote that he hoped everyone would come to Easter dinner as planned and not let this get bigger. Then Renata's sister Marjorie, a woman I had met exactly 4 times in 3 years, wrote that it was sad when daughters-in-law came into families and disrupted the peace. And then Marcus's cousin Brent, who I genuinely did not know was in this chat, wrote that everyone should respect the elders in the family. Petra wrote back, the elders took something that didn't belong to them. Respect goes both ways. Renata removed Petra from the chat. Petra texted me immediately. I got booted. Worth it. I love Petra. Marcus saw all of it. Marjorie's message, the cousin, his mother's whole performance. He sat with his phone for about 10 minutes. Then he left the group chat entirely. Then he texted Raymond directly and said we would not be at Easter dinner. Raymond called. I heard Marcus say, "Dad, your wife took Claire's wedding dress. I'm not gonna sit at a dinner table like that didn't happen until she actually apologizes. Not a performance, a real one." We didn't go to Easter. Renata called me twice that week. I didn't pick up. Marjorie emailed me. I don't know how she got my address, and told me I was clearly insecure in my marriage, and that a confident woman wouldn't feel threatened by a piece of fabric being used to make a young bride happy. She also said she was praying for me. I forwarded that email to Marcus. He called Marjorie. I don't know what he said to her, but she never contacted me again. 2 weeks after Easter, Danny called me. She sounded nervous. She said she'd never meant to cause problems, and that she would find her own dress. She said she'd had no idea her mother had taken it without asking. She'd assumed I'd offered it. She said, "Mom told me you were excited about it." There it was. That was the lie at the center of all of it. Renata had told Danny I was excited. She'd preempted any chance of Danny checking with me directly by telling her it was already settled. I told Danny I believed her. I told her none of my anger was directed at her, and I meant it. Danny was quiet for a moment and then said, "My mom does this sometimes. I'm sorry you're the one dealing with it." That cracked something open a little. I hadn't expected her to see it that clearly. After that call, I sat down with Marcus, and we had the real conversation, the one we'd been circling around for 3 years. I told him I needed actual change. Not promises, change. I told him his mother had been making unilateral decisions about my life since before we got married. The wedding plans, the curtains, the grandchildren pressure, the drop-in visits. Each time I didn't react, it made the next thing easier for her. I told him I'd been absorbing a lot of it to protect him from conflict with his family, and I was done absorbing it. He didn't argue. He said I was right. He said he'd been conflict avoidant his whole life, specifically because of his mother. That pushing back on her when he was a kid had real consequences, and he'd learned to route around her to avoid them. He said he knew that wasn't fair to me. I told him I wasn't looking for an explanation. I was looking for a plan. We set rules together. Visits would be scheduled, not drop-ins. She didn't have a key, but Marcus had given her the garage code at some point, and that code got changed the next day. Any conversation about family planning, our finances, our home, or our stuff would be met with a clear redirect or a hang-up. If Renata crossed a line, Marcus would address it in real time. Not later, not gently, not by hoping I wouldn't notice. And there would be no family contact, dinners, holidays, anything, until Renata gave me an actual apology. Not a performance, a real one. Marcus agreed to all of it. He wrote it down, which is what he does when he wants to take something seriously. For 3 weeks, nothing happened. Then on a Thursday night, the phone rang. Renata. Marcus put her on speaker. She said she'd been doing a lot of thinking. She said she understood why I was upset. She said she should have asked. She said it wasn't her dress to take. She said she was sorry for the hurt it caused. No buts. No, I was just trying to. No, I hope you can understand where I was coming from. Just, she was sorry. Marcus looked at me. I nodded. He told her he appreciated the call. He told her they could talk about getting together soon. He told her he loved her. After he hung up, we sat on the couch for a minute. I asked him if he thought it was real. He said he thought it was real enough for a first step. He said his mother wasn't going to suddenly become a different person, but that she was capable of recognizing when she'd actually pushed far enough to lose something. And that she'd finally understood she'd pushed that far with us. I said that sounded about right. I told him the apology was accepted, but my guard was staying up. He said that was fair. We've had 2 family dinners since then. Both at restaurants, not their house. Renata has been careful. She hasn't mentioned the dress. She hasn't mentioned grandchildren. She looked at a painting we'd bought on a weekend trip and said it was nice, and I waited for the critique, and it didn't come. Petra came to both dinners. She was reinstated in the group chat, which Renata apparently did without commenting on it. Petra texted me after the first dinner. I think she's been told to behave. Let's see how long it lasts. Honest answer, I don't know. Renata has patterns that are decades old, and I'm not naive about that. But something actually shifted. Marcus doesn't route around her anymore. He doesn't come to me with soft apologies for things she's already done. He handles things in real time, with her, before they land on me. That's what I actually needed. Not a perfect mother-in-law, just a husband who acts like we're on the same team. The dress is back in the box on the shelf. A few weeks after everything settled down, I opened it, looked at it, closed it back up. It's still beautiful. It's still mine. Donnie found a dress she loves, by the way. Petra showed me a photo. It's completely different from mine. A blush A-line with a long train. She looks great in it. I asked Petra to tell her that, and I meant every word. As for me and Marcus, we're better than okay. A real crisis shows you what someone is made of under pressure. Marcus failed the first test. He passed the second. He's been passing every one since then. I don't know if Renata will stay in her lane, but I know now what happens when she doesn't, and so does she. So here's what I want to know from you. Would you have handed the dress over from the start, just to keep the peace, or was drawing that hard line the right call? Drop your answer in the comments.